Hello and good morning. Today we're going to be going over freeCodeCamp.com, your intermediate algorithm scripting challenge DNA pairs. Okay, so we're going to be looking at the DNA pairing. Essentially, what we're going to be doing is trying to find if we hit a letter, it's going to have a match. So how can we best go through and do this? Just matching things when we know what the match already is. So let's take a look at this. I'll share my screen and we're going to go over some of the tools we're going to use for today. So here's the problem itself. So basically we're giving A, T, C, and G, and each one of those have a matched pair that we have to return, and it wants us to return it. As you can see, A, T, C, G in random order. We need an array with subarrays for each of these letters with its pair. So A always pairs with T, similarly T always pairs with A, C with G, G with C, so on and so forth. So all we have to know is what those pairs are, all right, what those base pairs are, and we have to know a few other things. First, we know that we're going to get a string in, okay, so that's going to be our argument that's going to come into our pair element function. It's going to be string, and we know we're going to want to split that into an array, so we can use an array method on it and split. Okay, remember, it just gives you a string, and then we can use the separator, and if we use the separator that is an empty string, is going to separate out by every letter, which is exactly what we want, and we've done this a bunch of times before, so that should be pretty simple. Then once we get ourselves an array, we can actually map that array. And what is map? Okay, we've used it before, and again, it is a method that creates a new array, which means we actually can string together a bunch of these array methods, which we don't have to do this time, but we can, which is kind of cool. And with the results, calling a provided function on every element of an array. What does that mean? Essentially, if we have an array element here and we call map on this array, we're going to apply a function to each element of this array. Okay, good, good. So we know exactly what we want to do. It's not too hard here. That's good, nice and easy one. So let's give ourselves some space. Now, I really like this challenge because the way that I'm going to solve it requires you to really have a good in-depth understanding of what's going on with these prototype string and array methods. And you have to have a very good handle on objects themselves. So I'm going to set up an object, and I'm just going to call it pairs, not like the fruit, but the actual DNA pairs. And I'm going to set this object, okay? Well, it'd be helpful if it's equal to that. I'm going to generate an object with a bunch of key value pairs, okay? So it's going to have properties. Each one of those properties is going to be a key value pair for the DNA pairing, such that the key A, okay, has a value of T. So A and T are one pair. So if I pass into my function A, I can go through, I can find the key A and return the value T, which is going to be its pair. So similarly, T, right, which the key is going to have a value of A, and you can just see how I'm setting up all of my matches here. C, what does C match up with? Well, G, G, and similarly then G is going to have to match up with C. Okay, and I'll end that sentence right there. So here I have an object, all right, and in that object I have 4 different properties, A, T, C, G, and so I have each one of those is going to be the key, and then the value is going to be its pair itself. All right, so now how can we use an object to get its match? All right, well, here's our pairs object. So what we want to return. All right, so let me just, actually, I'll bring this up here. We already have return there. So all we need to do is return, all right, we bring in our argument there, which is going to be a string. And we know that we're going to apply an array method to this map, so we have to split that string. So I'm going to split it rather by an empty string, which is going to split it by each letter. So now I have an array with each one of these things in a letter itself. Good. Now I can just map. And what do we need for map? For map, we have to bring in a function, and we have to put something in there. Now, this argument for the function, by default, because we're mapping, is going to be each element of the array. So it doesn't really matter what we put inside of here, but we need something. It could be X, it could be I, or we can just name it so we don't get confused, which is actually what I'm going to do here. So we're going to map, we're going to call an anonymous function here, and we can bring in, so map, all right, make sure we close this. So we have correct syntax for a second here. And we need to bring something into this function. Each one of these here that we're going to be bringing in is going to be a different element or item in our string, or a different, we'll call it, I don't know, base, why not? All right, for the base pairs. So everything in our string here, so a G is going to come in, then it's going to do the same thing to C, the same thing to G here, and we needed to spit back something. So what do we want to do? Well, what we want to give back here is we want to give back or return, okay, return out of this function here, all right, return out of our map function, and we want an array, all right? So what do we want an array with? It needs to be a 2D array. What does that mean? Let's take a look at here. We're given this sample here, all right? We want an array with subarrays, all right? And each subarray is going to have the key that they provide and the value that matches it. So how can we do that? All right, so we want an array that's going to return. And remember, our map itself creates a new array. So we already have this array that we have that's going to be returning. So inside of that array, if we say this here, so if we return the base itself, right, what we can get is we already get our 2D array or our subarrays. So we have the big array coming in from the map function, and then also inside of the map function, we're just returning another subarray with, for example, if we look at this, the A here is going to be this A here, and it's in a subarray, comma. And now how do we get the value? Okay, so that's our key. So how do we say I want the value? Well, I can just say I want the hairs. And remember how we use our object language here, where if I just write in our pairs here, it's really going to, or just write in our base rather, it's just going to give us our base or the key. However, if I identify the object itself and then I provide the key right here, it is going to match the actual value. So here I have the key and the value for that matching. So since all of these are going to match my object, when I run this function here on each of these strings, elements here, which are now arrays because of my split, I'm going to get myself a 2D array. And what is this going to look like if I run this? Ooh, look, success. However, more importantly, you could see my G came in, and I placed that G in this smaller array here, comma, pairs, which is this object, and I provide the key, which is just that base, again, G. So it's going to look through this, say, where is my key that says G? Oh, there it is. That means you're really looking for the value, which in this case is the string C. Awesome. So, and that gives us our C, and we're just returning that array. Good. So that works. Now, we're going to move on and map. So map says we do it to every item to C. Again, C, we're going to put the base in, which is just that, okay, which is just that string element C. And then we're going to go look up at pairs for the key base, and that key right there happens to be C. So where is the key for C? Oh, there it is. So spit back out G. There's my G. Close that 2D array, move on to the next item, all right? And you get, again, that GC. So hopefully this makes sense to you, all right? It requires a very strong understanding of how we're going to be using and calling objects and how this map function is working, okay? And what this argument actually is here, and also the anonymous function too. So hopefully this was helpful to you, and I will see you next time.